AI, where do we see this in the last days? Thank you for joining us again here on another episode of Get Ready News. My name is Mark Lindsted. This is my brother David Lindsted. And we'd like to look at the news through a biblical view.
Yeah, the Bible helps us concentrate our efforts, kind of look at all the things that are happening, pull it back into something that we know is truthful, something that we can measure and look at and see where are we at on this end time scale.
Yeah, well, I mean, in order to make something level, you need a plumb line.
Yes.
And the Bible has to be our plumb line because it's the only real truth there is.
Exactly. I think it's been said, and it's a true statement, that you won't find truth inside of you.
Yeah, well, the heart is deceitful above all. I tell you, it's interesting how many times that you'll go down a pathway of thinking and then you'll realize you were completely wrong because you didn't have all the information to begin with.
Yeah, that is for sure. And nowadays we get on Google, to try to educate ourselves, and it's amazing to how Google kind of funnels whatever you search. And it seems like you could, if you're conservative or liberal, you kind of get that slant.
Yeah.
Whenever you search it, and it's kind of hard to find unbiased stuff.
Well, this is kind of stemming from our conversation we had last week about deceit and how your Facebook or your social media or whatever social media you use kind of filters things for your viewpoint, and it gives you the idea that you're in the majority because consensus.
Exactly. And consensus doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah.
Just because more than one person agrees on it doesn't mean it's true.
Well, now here's the next thing. Do you think that there's somebody watching your Facebook feed and determining what you should see?
That's a good question. And I think that the answer is yes and no. Yeah. And I think it's yes, I think something is watching my feed. And I don't know that it's a person, so I would say no, it's not a person.
So a person programmed something that tracks your entertainment, what videos make you stay the longest.
Exactly.
And then starts to feed into that for you.
Yes.
So maybe AI?
AI, I think so, and that was one of the things we kind of talked a little bit about last week, is now I search on Google, and what's my very first search result on Google? An AI has gone out and asked my question and gathered information and put it there. And like you said, for the most part, it's not bad.
Yeah. Its synopsis really kind of agrees with what I think is truthful information at this point. But depending on who controls that, depends on how that starts to sway. We saw that with the images generated about the popes and the 1939 soldiers and things like that. But now we see that AI is coming into our government.
Yes, I'm looking at an article here, and it talks about Elon Musk and Doge, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying what's going on.
Oh yeah,
I love the going in and finding the fraud. I think he laid off or terminated a bunch of federal employees who hadn't made their past their 90 days.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the country needs to go to get back on track.
Sure.
But this article says that they're using a chatbot to replace some of these employees.
Well, I can understand where some generalized questions might be able to be answered by AI. Mm-hmm. But have you ever had a discussion with a chatbot?
Terrible. Terrible.
Oh, it is just hilarious. Sometimes you say, well, I need help tracking my order. Well, we can't find your order. Okay, here's my order number. Well, that's not an order number we recognize. Can I have an agent? No one's available.
Yeah.
What are we going to do when our government is full of that?
And I think AI, the way that they describe they're using it, is a very useful tool.
Yeah.
I think I saw another article where they're researching student visas to find out who is still here that shouldn't be here. When do their visa expire? And AI, this is a perfect thing for AI.
Yeah.
AI can go out and pull that information together. But there has to be a human that looks over the results.
Yeah.
One of the things that we run into quite a bit is whenever you put music on YouTube or any others, even if you have a license for that music, the AI will automatically ban you.
Yeah.
And then it's your response, it's on your end to prove that you have the rights to use it. And AI is very dumb, really.
It is. It's only, and I've always said this. I know there's people who think that AI at some point will become sentient and will do its own thing. I don't think it will ever be smarter than the person's programming it because I don't think it can really honestly learn something new to mankind.
Exactly. It can't go beyond its programming.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it parameters. And if I don't know something outside of those parameters, it can't get outside of that parameter.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean it can't gather information and bring information that allows a programmer to understand that and to change the parameter.
And then to fix whatever,
And I've also heard another theory thrown around where we could have two AI programs, one of them that rewrites parameters for the other one.
Yeah.
But I still think that's still
it's
a wishful thinking.
I think mankind has this thought that we can be God.
Yes.
And we can create sentient beings. And that'll never happen, in my opinion. I don't think that we're smart enough. We're not powerful enough to do anything like that.
You know, it comes back, we've been doing some reading and research on some of this IVF and stuff like that. And I think man's playing around with things they shouldn't be playing around with.
Yeah.
And there's some bad things in there. But on the other hand, it goes back to the old joke where the scientists come to God and say, you know, God, we can make a human, we can make all this stuff. And God says, okay, show me. And they start to scoop up the dirt. He says, oh, wait a minute. That's my dirt.
Yeah.
Go find your own dirt.
Yeah, make your own dirt.
Make your own stuff. And man's good at taking things and cobbling them together and saying, look what I made.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of Doge.
Yes,
I am
absolutely.
a huge fan of Doge. In fact, I can't remember what the exact number is. I think it's over $100 billion now, rounding up to almost $200 billion in savings. And I think that equated to like $1,500 per taxpayer.
Yeah, you can actually go to the time clock now has the Doge on it.
It's wonderful.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about this is I'm thinking about the trade war between Canada and the U.S. And Canada came out the other day and said, "Oh, we're gonna do this, and this is gonna cost you $29 billion." Well, I was saved $200 billion already through Doge. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a misunderstanding, and I don't want to sidetrack us onto too much of a different subject here, but to watch a country the size of Canada think that they're going to hold a country the size of America hostage in tariffs, they're going to go bankrupt before they even come close to making us feel pain.
Yeah, they buy more from us than we buy from them.
Yeah.
And even President Trump said, well, these 1.5 million people to get power from Canada, why is that? We can just put them on ours. We don't need that.
Why are we, and this is where Trump was in his first term.
Yeah.
We need to be energy independent from everyone else. We need to be doing our own thing. And it was interesting to watch this guy, I don't know his name, the prime minister up there, who said, well, we'll just cut the power off.
Yeah.
And he was going, we're going to do it. And a day later, oh, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that. Well, because Trump came out and said, well, it's fine. We'll add 50% more tariff.
Yep.
It's such a time watching this small country try to be a bully.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that we have to go through the semantics of this for them to finally come to an agreement on what should really happen.
Yeah. And in the truth be told, everybody in the world's taking advantage of us, and we are on the losing stick. And that's how come we're in such problem.
Yeah.
Is because we became a nation of consumers.
Yep.
And that's all we do is buy, shop and buy.
Yep. Well, I saw a comedian the other day talking about it's easy to be the hip, cool sibling in the family when you have a Kevlar vest called the USA as your border.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But anyway, back to our AI thing. So we're bringing this into government now. Now, what do you do when the chat bot can't answer the question or determine what's the correct course of action, and there's no one there to answer the phone after that?
That's a very good question. And the next question that goes beyond that is, what do you do when somebody gets a hold of this chat bot that doesn't have good intentions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that's a huge possibility. It's kind of like, and there's another article about the Neuralink, and they're
Yeah.
talking about telepathy and telekinesis.
Yeah.
And I think what they mean by telepathy is that if you and I have Neuralink, we can talk to each other via this link.
Sure.
And then telepathy would be controlling electronic stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
But, all it takes is somebody to hack that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And can they control you?
Well, think about this. If you're somebody who cannot discern what's really going on, if you don't have a good discernment, I look at somebody, let's just say somebody in their 70s, and they reach out to the IRS, they have a bill, the IRS sent a letter to their home saying, hey, you owe $500 more in taxes or whatever. They log online, they go to this chat bot, and somebody hijacks the chat bot.
Yes. Yeah.
Or it automatically reroutes you to a different page, and they say, oh, yes, you have a refund coming. Just share with me your bank details.
Yeah. In fact, it's kind of funny. Right before you came on this call, we've had a contact of yours is all of a sudden sending very bizarre messages via Facebook.
Yeah.
And so it's a very easy thing to dupe people into thinking that they're talking to the right people.
Yes.
One of the things that bothers me is, back in the old world, I always call it, when I was young, you never gave your Social Security number out, ever.
Yeah.
And it was just maybe to your employer, and you showed your little card that's not supposed to be an identification, but somehow is an identification. But now everybody wants to know your Social Security number.
Well, I was watching as a comedian. I watched a pretty funny comedy show the other day, but he says, I'm got someone coming to my door. They want me to sponsor trees. And he says, I'm a yes man. Sure. I did $75 a month or $75 for a tree is what it was. He said, they give me a random iPad and I typed in all my information.
Yeah. You have no
idea. And then
idea.
I found out after I hit accept that it was a $75 monthly donation. And he put his wife on it because he says, my wife can cancel anything. But it was interesting. He said, I didn't think about this till he said that, because how many times have I said, oh, yeah, give me your computer. I type in my information, and now it's in their computer.
Another thing that we went through recently with my wife is she bought something off of internet. And I've told her, when you're on this place, don't click ads.
Yeah.
Not every ad's a good one. And she bought some stuff for Christmas. And all of a sudden, we have an extra charge on our card.
Yeah.
And we call the bank, and the bank says, oh, this is common. And they refund it, and now they have to get a whole new number. So, you're putting your number on the internet.
Yep.
To a vendor that you don't even know. They may supply you with what you wanted. They may steal your number and do it for something else, or they may get hacked and people it's out of hand,
Well, as we talk about AI then, where do we think AI fits into the last days or the end times?
That's a good question. Another article I have talks about AI integrated in the military. Mm-hmm. And, helping making real-time decisions in the military. And we've seen all sorts of drones. We've seen these dogs.
Yeah.
That they've kind of like have rescue dogs now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now we've even seen upright bots.
Yeah.
I think Tesla makes one.
Well, there was one, and I don't know if the video was AI generated or if it was a real video, but it was showing an upright bot that had weapons on it. And what they had done is they had taken a scenario, said, okay, we're going to shoot at you, you're going to move. They recorded all the reactions that humans could make when they want to try and dodge from being shot.
Yeah.
So that the robot now says, okay, more than likely you're going to go here. So instead of, when I pull my gun, I'm actually going to shoot down here because that's where you're going to go.
Yep.
And it anticipates your move and just, you have no way out.
And that's a smart way to do it. Whenever we go hunting, you know how our bird's going to go down first before it comes up, and you kind of can gauge what you're shooting and how you're shooting. And the thing that I think AI has over us is it has a faster reaction time.
Faster reaction, and it deals black and white.
Yes.
It doesn't deal in gray.
Exactly. It's you follow this directive.
Yeah.
Where a human, you would like to think, and of course we saw this in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
That a human would say, this may not be right.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I see that this is playing out in something we kind of chatted about, and that was over, I think, in Revelation 13.
Yeah, yeah, the image of the beast.
Yeah, and we've been kind of discussing that, and for years we've always talked about, well, what does this mean, and it's interesting. One of the things that Daniel says is, as you get to end times, those people living in end times will understand those prophecies better
Yeah, yeah.
because you're starting to live it.
Yeah, yeah. It's talking about common things to you. Where if you take, let's say you take somebody out of Thailand, put them in the U.S., and start talking about a common first world problem. Most of the time, they're going to look at you and say, "I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yep.
I don't deal with my garage door opener not working. We don't have garages."
Right, right.
So now that we're living in the times when this stuff has actually come to be, we understand more. It's just like the description of the fighters of great scorpions and things.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
that's really an exoskeleton that has a turret gun on it that looks like a scorpion's tail.
It could be any of that stuff. And one of the other ones that people discussed for a long time, and I just dawned on me several years ago that this is a possibility now, and that is the two witnesses.
Yeah.
And the two witnesses are standing in front of the temple, and they're breathing fire. They've stopped it from raining, and God allows them to be killed.
Yeah.
The world finally kills them, and what does it say? The entire world watched it and rejoiced.
Yeah.
Now, I'm telling you, back in the 90s and early 2000s,
The world couldn't have watched the
how's that going to
simultaneous
happen?
broadcast.
How's that going to happen in the middle of Africa? We always have in our minds there's these places where people have never been, and then they go with cameras there, and they're wearing modern cotton shirts.
Yeah.
So I always wonder, well, I don't know about never
Yeah.
been, but in the middle of nowhere. Well, I have some medical missionaries that I know,
Yeah.
and they would go to these places in the middle of nowhere to do medical things, and every tribe had been given a generator at some time.
Yep.
And they have this pole in the middle of the thing with a light on it,
Yeah.
and all these cell phones plugged into it.
Everybody has a cell phone.
Everybody has a cell phone, and guess what? I could watch
Yeah.
those two witnesses be killed on my personal device.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a coming of age, I guess, is what it should say,
Yeah.
of the technology for these things to really be accomplished.
Absolutely.
So now then we get on this discussion of the beast.
Yeah.
And that might be a minefield, trying to go through that and understand what it means. There's a beast of the sea. There's a beast of the earth.
Right.
There's what's one beast versus the other beast? Is it a civil thing? Is it a person? What is it?
And there's so many different views. I shouldn't say that. There's basically two different views.
Yeah.
One view is that in Revelation 13, that the view is that this is a world economic power that is presenting itself with the seven heads, the 10 horns, and the crowns, and all that, and then there was a wound
Yeah.
to the head, and I believe that is to that power, and the Antichrist comes in and restores that power,
Yeah.
and then becomes the face of the beast from then on.
Yeah.
But there's also some other
Yeah.
thoughts out there.
Well, the other thought is that the first beast, the one that comes out of the sea, is actually the Antichrist.
Yep.
And he comes over and he takes lead of the 10 region world economic civil control, whatever you want
Right.
to call it, and that he is injured physically, but that he has a resurrection that comes from the second beast, or that's part of the second beast here, I think, that comes from the earth, which some people would say is the false prophet.
Right. So and then from the false prophet, there's an image that's set up of the beast that people are supposed to worship.
Yeah, I got that wrong. He got his power from the dragon.
From the dragon,
from
correct.
from the devil. But yeah, the image, and then so you get this image that's injured and comes back to life, or maybe even considering this first beast, the Antichrist, if you want to call it that, Here's my thought on this with AI and where we're going with robots and all this stuff. You remember, is it Star Trek? Had a guy named Data,
Yes.
looked like a human. You could tell then he wasn't,
Right.
because he was a little fair skinned, plasticized skin something. But man, how hard would it really be for them to create a being right now that's hard to distinguish?
I think that we're there.
Yeah.
I think that we're at that place in time. It says that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword, and did live. In the power he gave life to the image of the beast, and the image had of the beast so both speak and cause as many would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So this whatever this is, whatever
Yeah.
this image is, and I think you're onto the right thing. I think that we're looking at an AI robot
Yeah.
that is in the image of the
Yeah.
Antichrist
Yeah.
that is set up in the temple. And I kind of look at that, and I look at the military application. Does this mean just one
Maybe
image?
there's multiple.
Is it the scorpion-like things that come after?
Well, and I almost look at it as, everything that God has, Satan wants.
Absolutely.
God had created a world. Satan wants to take dominion of the world.
Yes.
God has a bride. Satan has a bride.
Yep.
There's a true Trinity and a false Trinity. And I almost look at this image of the beast, and I think, man, remember they described Christ as the express image of God.
Yep.
The full, meaning he's the full image, whether it's in stature, in thinking, in cognitive, everything. He is the express. He is the full image. And I think of this being is cyborg the right word for this?
Cyborg is a combination of human tissue and robot.
So probably not that. What do they call just a pure robot? Not a cyborg, but I've lost the term now. Anyway, to have their own express image,
Right.
programmed with the words, programmed with the thought pattern that would come directly from the Antichrist's mouth,
Yep.
and say, okay, you're going to worship, or I'm going to do this.
Well, the other thing I think that this could be used for, so you think about it this way, AI is infiltrating everything.
Yeah.
My iPhone's new upgrade specifies that AI is awesome, and I use AI
Yeah.
occasionally with my iPhone. But this opens up the Antichrist and the dragon to have worldwide presence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how else are they going to hunt down those people that won't worship the beast?
Yeah.
They're going to have some type of network that can handle that.
Well, I think of how Doge is going to use AI for the student visas and things. Okay, so we know that so-and-so, person X, has overstayed their visa.
Yep.
Okay, now I'm going to program my AI machine to go through social media. I want you to find pictures of this person. I want you to find mentions of this name. And I want to find locations.
Yep.
And AI would be perfect suited for that. Okay,
Yep.
My guess is that he's going to be in this 5-block radius. And they're going to be able to do that with those who won't worship the beast. Who didn't
Absolutely.
post on Facebook that the
Yep.
beast is good?
Yep.
Who didn't show up at the beast temple this week? Who didn't, things of that nature?
We look at what happened in Australia with the camps they set up and taking people and putting them out there, and this is just the next step.
Yeah.
To be able to track where you are, find you, and I think it just gives the Satan and the beast omnipresence almost.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that he covets of God, which I think his primary thing he covets is worship.
Yeah.
And so now he's coming after you because you're not worshiping.
Yeah. Well, and Satan, I think, knows the scripture.
Yes.
I think he understands the plan of God to a point. I don't know why he thinks he can win still, but he thinks he might have a chance, I guess. But you even looked at this. You were talking about our dad was discussing this last week. It's an interesting thing to think of when the devil was tempting Christ, and he said, "Give the angels charge over you, that lest you dash your heel."
Yes.
Well, does that go all the way back to Genesis chapter 3? That you'll bruise his head and he'll bruise your heel.
He was saying, exactly, he was saying, I'll save you
Yeah.
from having to bruise your heel
Yeah.
by giving you the kingdom. And one of the other messages he gave, and I 100% agree with this, I think Satan's plan has always been to foil whatever God says in prophecy, because
Yeah.
I think that he thinks if I can stop Israel from being what God promises, and you look at all the hate for Israel right now, and I think that hate is a satanic hate.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think his goal is to try to make God a liar somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think in his mind, if he can do that, he wins.
Well, I hate to tell Satan this. If he would just read the rest of the book,
Yeah.
he's going to determine that he can't win. And that's the important thing to know here, is that no matter what he's going to do to try and foil the plan, it's like that description. The devil's playing checkers.
Yes.
And God's playing chess. And there's no way for him to win.
No.
And I want us to understand, as believers, we're fighting from victory. Victory's been won. We're not trying to win this. It's already won.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things you can say is God is in control, and everything he already knows, everything that's going to happen. One of the things I've heard quite constantly is that, Trump got into office, and now we've got more time, and I'm ecstatic that Trump got into office.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand me at all. This didn't change God's time plan.
No.
God put him in place.
Yeah. Well, it's, one of the messages I gave here recently was talking about 2 Peter 3, and it talks about what we should be doing between now and then. We know that the new heaven and new earth are coming.
Yep.
What kind of person should we be? Then it goes to the next verse and says we should be the person who is looking for and hastening the day of the Lord. So do you think we can change when the rapture happens?
No.
No, but maybe God says, okay, I know that tomorrow is going to be the rapture, because I know finally someone's going to pay attention what they should have paid attention to and go witness to the last person. That's the last soul that will be the part of the bride.
It very well could be something of that simple nature.
So we're working to the day of the Lord.
Yep.
And that's what we hope you're doing as well. And if anything, I want you to come away with this knowing that your salvation is assured.
Yes.
And that if you've placed your faith in Jesus Christ as your Savior, you're saved. It has nothing to do with you. Doesn't matter how much faith you have. Doesn't matter how many prayers you say. Doesn't matter how many good deeds you do. It's all based on the work that He did, not the work that we've done. So if you've placed your faith in Christ, I want to encourage you to share that faith with others. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.